I keep saying 4 words or less, like God's going to give me something with less words than 4, but keeps working out that way. This week we're going to be in Jeremiah chapter 29. Jeremiah chapter 29, we're going to start in verse 10. It says this is what the Lord says. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. God was letting them know you were going to have to go through a time of persecution. You're going to have to go through 70 years of living in a land you don't want to live in. You're going to have to do this because of your disobedience to me. But he goes on to say in verse 11, for I know the plans I have for you. I know the plans I have for you. I know what you're getting ready to experience. I know what you're going to be going through. But I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. It says in verse 12, then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. Look at verse 13. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back from captivity. I will gather you from all the nations and places where I have banished you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back to the place from which I carried you into exile. Now listen, we're always quick to scream and shout over Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. But I want you to look at verse 13 again, because that's going to be the context of the sermon today. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. The NLT version says it this way, if you look for me wholeheartedly, you will find me. The Message version is a much longer spin on it. Imagine that. Yeah. It says this, when you come looking for me, you'll find me. Yes, when you get serious about finding me and want it more than anything else, I'll make sure you won't be disappointed. God's decree. I remember being a kid playing this game called hide and seek. You remember that game? We had a small group at our house yesterday, and some of the kids were playing hide and seek. You remember how nobody ever wanted to be it? Everybody always wanted to hide. Nobody wanted to. It was like the person who was it had cooties, right? And it was like 1, 2, 3. Oh, see, some of y'all don't even know that. 1, 2, 3, not it. Why is it that we always want to hide, but we never want to seek? Why is it that we want to hide, but we never want to seek? Why is it that we're better at hiding from God than seeking God? In fact, I've titled my sermon today, Hide But Not Seek. Hide but not seek. But I'm good at hiding, y'all. Listen, you can ask my kids when we played hide and seek, they could never find me. I would find good places to hide. And when I found that good place, I would keep going back to that good place over and over and over and over again, because I learned the secret of finding a good hiding space is not revealing your hiding spot. You can't tell everyone the good spot that you found, because as soon as you tell them the good spot that you found, it won't be the perfect hiding spot anymore. See, once you reveal to someone where you've been hiding, you can't go back to that spot. Oh, you all weren't ready for me to preach today, were you? You came in this morning and you were like, I just want to get a few extra minutes of sleep this morning. Or maybe, listen, on Saturday nights, you all need to start going to bed a little bit earlier so you can come in refreshed and rested and ready to hear what God has to speak to you this morning. What I was telling you is this: when you reveal your hiding spot, it loses its power over your life, and you will begin to walk in a newness of life, knowing I can't go back to the place I once used to hide in. Woo! I'm afraid we got some world-class hiders in the church today. We got some world-class hiders in the church today. We don't have enough world-class seekers in the church today. We have people who want to hide from God, who want to hide their disappointments, who want to hide their rejection, and they don't want to seek God because they're too busy hiding. See, if you put as much effort into seeking the Lord as you do from hiding from the Lord, then you'll see some things start to shift in your life. When I'm thinking about a story in the Bible that will help illustrate this idea about someone who was trying to hide, immediately my thought went to Gideon. Gideon is one of my favorite stories, if not my favorite story in the entire Old Testament. Gideon is mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11 as being someone that had tremendous faith. But when we first meet Gideon, he didn't show any signs of faith at all. He is threshing wheat in a wine press because their enemies kept attacking and stealing their crops. Let me just give you a little bit of context with this. When you thresh wheat, you do it as high up on the hilltop as you possibly can. You find somewhere where there's a good breeze blowing, so when you throw the wheat in the air, all of the other impurities will float away in the wind. You separate the chaff from the wheat, and you do this by winnowing and by throwing it up into the air and allowing the wind to come and take the chaff and blow it away. That's how you separate it. But instead of him being up on top of the hill, where his enemies would see him and most certainly come and steal his crop, we find this person who's mentioned as having amazing faith being in a wine press. Now, a wine press was not found on the top of the hill. The wine press used gravity, so it was often found in the lower parts of one's property. So where he should have been up high, threshing this wheat, he finds himself inside a wine press, in a place he was never supposed to be, doing what he was supposed to be doing, but doing it all the wrong way. Listen, when God calls you to do something, and you do it all the wrong way, it will be much more difficult. It will take you a lot longer time. It will be more frustrating to you than ever, because you're doing it in a way God never called you to do it in the first place. Gideon was hiding, and Gideon wasn't seeking. Gideon was hiding from his enemies instead of seeking out the Lord. Instead of seeking God out in his time of need, he was hiding in a wine press. They cried out to God for help, but only because they were being attacked. They cried out to God for help, but only because they were being attacked. Listen to me closely this morning. When we only cry out to God when we're under attack, we're not seeking God, we're using God. When we only cry out to God when we're being attacked, when I feel like I can't go on anymore, when I only feel and I only seek out God when I'm in trouble, I'm not seeking God at all. I'm simply using God to give me exactly what I want. See, the word seek in the original Hebrew means to search out, to strive for. Now, this word strive is not a word that we use commonly in the English language, but it means to use great effort. To use great effort to achieve or obtain something. It also means to struggle or fight vigorously. When is the last time that you have fought or struggled vigorously to seek out God in your life? See, seeking is not something that can only be accomplished on Sunday mornings. You can't just show up for church and expect that you're going to be able to seek out God in the 45 minutes that we spend together. I asked him in my small group yesterday, because as I was getting ready yesterday, God spoke something to me that said this: Mark, what would life look like if you only ate one good meal a week? As I began to think about that, I was like, but what kind of meal? Would I be willing to forsake all the other days for just one good meal a week? Because listen, here's what I know about a good meal. It's good while I'm eating it. But about later that night, I start to get a little rumble in my stomach. And I begin to be hungry again. And if I only eat one time a week, guess what's going to start to happen? My stomach is going to start to shrink. Let me give it to you another way. My capacity is going to start to shrink. And then when I come back in to eat that good meal the next time with the capacity that has shrank, I won't be able to eat as much as I did the last time. And then after that, I might not even have enough strength to get myself to the kitchen table to eat. Listen, we have too many people in churches today that are trying to survive off of one meal inside the church on a Sunday morning. And if we only try to survive on one meal a week inside a church building, then we will find ourselves losing our capacity to eat from the Word of God in our lives. And eventually I won't have enough energy to even crawl myself to church. Eventually I'll fall away because my relationship was only contingent on what the pastor was saying to me or the preacher or the man of God was saying. Listen, don't put that kind of pressure on me. Because when I leave here today, I'm going to go home and take a nap. And whether you accept it is up to you, because God's been giving it to me for much longer than He's been giving it to you. See, when I think about seeking, I'm thinking about treasure hunters. And I'm an 80s kid, so I'm thinking about the Goonies. Come on, any Goonies fans in here this morning? If you don't know what the Goonies are, we can't even be friends. The Goonies, man, they were seeking a treasure. And they didn't give up when the Fratellis tried to stop them. Listen, you got some Fratellis in your life trying to stop the treasure that God has placed at the end of your seeking. And as long as you keep allowing the Fratellis to stop you, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go home and watch the movie. But for those that understand what I'm talking about, there are some Fratellis in your life. There are some ugly old women that look like men in your life that are trying to stop you from finding the purposes of seeking out the treasure. They didn't stop when the Fratellis tried to stop them. They didn't stop when Andy played the wrong notes on top of that skeleton organ and the whole floor started caving in. They didn't give up. They kept pursuing. They didn't give up until they found One-Eyed Willie's treasure. They kept going. Y'all didn't know you were going to get a little bit of Goonies in the sermon this morning. What kind of movie would that have been when they got to the first sign of displeasure? They said, you know what, it's really not worth it. Let's just go home. And we laugh about that, but that's exactly what we do. I want to seek God. No, you want to seek God as long as it doesn't cost you something. You want to seek God as long as it's comfortable for you. You want to seek God as long as you don't have to put any effort into it. Really, what you're wanting is for God to seek you and you take the credit for it. Woo.
That hurt, Pastor.
It hurt me too, Will. When the first thing that comes along to distract us, we stop seeking. When the first thing comes along that doesn't match up with exactly the idea I had in my mind of what this church was going to look like, we give up. When something seems to be a little bit more fun over here than seeking God, I chase that instead of seeking God. But Jeremiah says that we'll find God not just when we seek Him, but when we seek Him with our whole heart. That means with every part of our being. That means when I get up in the morning. That means throughout the day. That means throughout the evening. That means throughout the nighttime. That means when I stop calling it an inconvenience that God woke me up in the middle of the night and start realizing maybe, just maybe, He did that because I need to be seeking Him in my life. This means this isn't a casual affair. Seeking is hard work. Come on, have you ever sought God before? It's hard work. It is hard work. And everything and everyone is jumping in and trying to distract you from seeking God. But if you want to know who God is, it's going to require you to seek just like the Goonies sought. To try to find that treasure that you might find the real source of who God is. Jesus told us in Matthew 7, if we'll do this, it will pay off. He said in Matthew 7, 7 and 8, keep on asking, and you will receive what you ask for. Amen. Keep on seeking, and you will find. Keep on knocking, and the door will be opened to you. He goes on to say, for everyone who asks, receives. Everyone who seeks, finds. And everyone who knocks, the door will be opened. Listen, sometimes I'm good at asking without seeking and knocking. Sometimes I'm good at knocking without asking or seeking. But when I'm seeking, I will automatically be asking and knocking. Listen, these work together. This is not just because I ask, I get what I want. No, it's when I'm seeking God's will for my life. It's when I'm knocking on doors that everyone else says you don't have any business knocking on. It's when I begin to believe and trust in faith that God is who He says that He is. And when I put these combinations together, then I will receive, find, and doors will be opened. Gideon's hiding when the angel of the Lord, who later is known to be Jesus, shows up. When the angel spoke to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. I'm sorry. Where was Gideon at? In a wine press. Why was he there? He was hiding because he was afraid of the enemy. Yet, Jesus Himself comes to him and says, mighty warrior. There is nothing in this story that speaks to Gideon being a mighty warrior based on the circumstances that we can see so far. In fact, he says back to the angel of God, I am the least in my tribe. And my tribe is the least of all the tribes in all of Manasseh. In other words, you've got the wrong guy. You're calling me a mighty warrior, but my past just shows I'm a mighty failure. How many realize this morning that when you hear voices in your head calling you something from your past, those are never from God? God doesn't call you by your mistakes. God calls you not on potential, because potential means I haven't done anything. God calls you on what He sees you doing in the future for the work of God. He saw what Gideon was going to do, and He called him by the work he was going to accomplish through Gideon. And He called him mighty warrior. Listen, somebody in here this morning has been listening to all the wrong voices in your head. You've been listening to what everyone else has been calling you and what you call yourself, but you need to understand this morning that God is calling you mighty warrior. Not because you might potentially do it, but because He already has seen you do it. Because God sees all things, from your current situation, your past situation, all the way through the end of your existence. God is not surprised or shocked by what happens in your life. He sees everything all at one time. Verse 13, Gideon replied, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are all the miracles our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say the Lord brought us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites. Gideon makes a compelling case. Gideon has a lot of time built up in his persecution of the angel here. He has a lot of abandonment issues, that God isn't doing what he said he was going to do. He has all of these things that are working in his mind and voices that are telling him that your God is never going to show up. He only cared enough for the generations before you, but he doesn't love you that way. And I want you to watch how Jesus responded back to all of his questioning. He says, go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. You mean Jesus didn't even entertain his questioning? No, he didn't need to. He told him to go in the strength you have. I didn't catch this the first few times I read this as a kid. I didn't catch it when I read it as a teenager. I don't think I caught it until I started pastoring this church. Go in the strength you have. That meant that God wasn't telling him, I'll give you more strength tomorrow. He wasn't telling him, I'll give you more strength when you make the first move and start doing what I'm telling you to do. He said, no, Gideon, everything you need to do what I've called you to is already inside of you. And listen, somebody in here needs to hear that today. What God is calling you to, you're looking at and saying, there's no way I could possibly accomplish that. But listen to this. Go with the strength he's already placed inside of you. Just because you don't recognize the strength doesn't mean it's not there. Just because you can't see what God's doing on the other side of what you're calling a trial doesn't mean that God hasn't already put it inside of you. He's given you everything that's necessary for you. Will he give you more? Will he teach you more? Yes, he will teach you as you go along. But everything as a child of God that you need is already in you, because greater is he that's in the world. And the same power that is inside of me is the same power that rose Jesus from the dead. I have everything in me I need. Maybe I have to learn lessons along the way, but I have all the strength, I have all the resources already inside of me. Gideon is hiding when he should have been seeking. But something shifts in Gideon. When he begins seeking, we don't have time for the entire story today, but when he begins seeking, God does exactly what he promised. In 2 Chronicles 7:14, when he says this, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sins and I will heal their land. Come on, that's exactly what we as a church love to tout, but we as a church don't love to live out. Listen, I'm saying to you this morning that if all of your hope in what God's going to do for this country is in the government, you have a problem, because that's just who we blame it on. This isn't a government problem. This is a Christian problem. I don't care who you put into office. I don't care who stays in office. It will have nothing to do with this, because this word says, if my people, if Christians will come together, if they will pray, if they will seek my face, if they will turn from their own wicked ways, if they will stop focusing on what everyone else is doing, and they will start focusing on what they are or are not doing, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive them of their sins, and I will heal their land. But seeking is hard work. It's easier to blame everyone else for our laziness This is not a government issue. This is not a world political issue. This is a church issue. This is the church issue. And as long as we keep coming to church and only seeking God for 45 minutes or an hour and a half on a Sunday, we will always have this problem. We must humble ourselves, we must pray, and we must seek. I was going back through some of my old notes that I jotted down. I put them in my phone in case I ever need a sermon at the last minute. And I realized that sometimes the things I was given aren't for right now. They're for well in the future. And I found this little note that I put in my phone from August of 2020. Isn't it amazing that God gave me something over 2 years ago to say to you on October 30th, 2022, that you won't open your own ears to hear from Him, so He had to give it to me to give it to you 2 years later? It's simply this: wherever God goes, change happens. God can't be present and something not change. So if an area of your life hasn't changed, it's because you haven't taken God there yet. Over 2 years in the making, for this moment this morning, for you to hear that God doesn't go anywhere, that change doesn't happen. So if you're complaining about an area of your life that's not changing, it's because you haven't given God access to that part of your life yet. You've figured out how to hide, but not how to seek. And you've been hiding that area of your life. If we go back to that childhood game of hide and seek, you found the good hiding spot. And you're not telling anyone else where that hiding spot is. You've been hiding behind alcohol. That one hurt. That one hit somebody. Oh. You've been hiding behind pornography. You're hiding behind the insecurity of who you are and who God will be through you. You're hiding behind the worry. You're threshing wheat in a wine press. Let me show you this morning. If I'm looking for a good hiding place, I'm going to look for a place that's not so obvious. So I'm going to go hide in a place where no one will find me. And I will go to a place where no one can see me, where I won't even have to make a noise. And I can sit here and I can hide, and no one ever has to know. And as long as I choose to hide here, I'll be successful at the game of hide and seek. But I'll never be successful in seeking God. Because as long as I can hide in a spot where no one can see me, then I don't have to be vulnerable. And I don't have to be transparent. And I don't have to tell anyone about my struggles. Because all I have to do is simply get somewhere where no one can see me. Get somewhere where no one can see me. Listen, we prepare tomorrow's trick or treat, and we have kids all over the country that will put on masks to hide their true identity. But for many of us Christians, we treat every day like Halloween. Wearing a mask so that no one can really see who we really are behind it. You come into church every week and you fool all of us. You hug us. You love on us. We hug you. We love on you. And all the while, you're asking yourself, did I forget my mask in the car? Did I leave it at home? Some of y'all are worried about leaving your phone at home. What you're really worried about is leaving your mask at home. Because if you see the real me, you'll reject me. So I have to keep hiding who I really am. Because as long as I hide who I really am, He won't reject me for who I know I am. Listen, this has been my life. This has been my story. I've been hiding behind the concept and idea of working for God, all the while not allowing God to work in me. I've been hiding, keeping everything a secret, acting like if I just keep the mask on, no one has to know. You need to understand this morning that God won't heal a fake version of you. And that God won't bless a fake version of you. And God won't restore a fake version of you. It's time we stop hiding, and it's time we start seeking. Let me let you in on a little secret this morning. You can hide your addiction from others. You can hide your insecurity from people for 2 hours on a Sunday morning. But you can't hide it from God. You want to know what the scariest part is? God's method for healing your brokenness? You don't want to hear this. His method for healing your brokenness, His method for healing your fear, His method to healing your addiction is to bring it to the light. You might be saying, Mark, you had me all the way up until that last point. I want a secret solution to a secret problem. You can't have a secret solution to a secret problem. That just means you found a really good hiding spot and you haven't told others where that hiding spot is. Listen, here's what I learned in my own life. As soon as I reveal the place I've been hiding, that place loses its power over me. And I can't keep going back there because every time I go back there, there's somebody standing in that spot like, hey, what are you doing here? Hey, no, we don't come here anymore. This is not the hiding spot we go to anymore. You're hiding instead of seeking. We're going to seek instead of hide. Look at what James 5:16 says. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so you may be healed. What? You mean I can't just ask God to take it all away? You can ask, but you're not seeking. You might be knocking, but you're not seeking. Because when we begin to seek God, then we realize that our ways are not His ways. And our thoughts are not His thoughts. We start to realize that just because I want it to happen a certain way, doesn't mean it's going to happen. God wants to bring whatever you've been hiding to the light. And the only way that I know to tell you to do that, if you've been hitting a wall, you've been asking God, you've been asking Him over and over and over again, God, please heal this area of my life, and He doesn't seem to be doing it. There's one thing you're missing. You're praying from that hiding spot. And you're not letting anyone else in and not letting anyone else know where your perfect hiding spot is. But the moment you do that is the moment that you confess your sins to each other and you pray for each other. And look what the promise was. You will be healed. You want the healing? Be careful what you ask for. If you want the healing, God's going to bring it to the light. If you want to keep hiding, you'll stay in the darkness. But I believe that there's at least one person in the room today that is looking to find freedom from something, and they've gotten to the point in their life where they're going to throw caution to the wind, and they're going to say, even if this kills me, I will get freedom. Listen, we have to get to the point where we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We have to get to the point where I would rather die in freedom than live in bondage and misery. I have to get to the place where I would rather allow my pride to die than I would for myself to die the way I am. Because honestly, when we hide but not seek, it's because we're so full of pride that we won't allow ourselves to become vulnerable. Now listen, I want to change one word in that verse, just to make sure you don't head down the wrong path. Confess your shortcomings to each other and pray for each other so you may be healed. Confess your addictions to each other and pray for each other that you may be healed. Confess your emotions to each other and pray for each other so you may be healed. America has turned the church into a shrine of perfection instead of a place of vulnerability and honesty. It's become a museum of perfection where we come in and we talk about how good God has been in our life. That's great. I'm glad God's been good in your life. But you're still running and hiding to some secret place that nobody in that whole other building knows about. I stood up here in front of you for 5 years. You had no idea. Why? Because I wore my mask well. And I had learned to only let a limited number of people into my life because I could control the chaos. And if I let too many people into my life, then they might see something and find something out about this secret I've been trying to hide in my life for 30 years. It wasn't until I said, God, you know what? I would rather die free than I would to keep living in this misery, in this prison of bondage that I've created for myself. And he had told me the 3 things, I've shared this with you before, but I'll share it again, the 3 things I had to do in order to get free. Number 1 is I had to have accountability. I have that. I talk to somebody on the phone every single day. Sometimes 45 minutes or an hour we talk on the phone about emotions and things that are going on in our lives. And we do that. Not because I wanted to. I didn't want to do it. This joker found me. Lee walked up to me. I'm just going to say it. He walked up to me one day and was like, hey, I need to share with you my story. And I was like, cool, let's go to lunch sometime. Having no idea that it's exactly what I've been praying for years. I knew for me, I had to get counseling. I just completed 1 year of counseling. I don't say that for your clap and for your applause. I know you're just being supportive. But I talked to my counselor and he was like, Mark, what do you think? We've been doing this now for a year. I think you've learned quite a bit of stuff. Where are you at with this? And I was like, listen, I'm willing to maybe put this on the back burner for a little while as long as you're still available if I need to call you. And that's where I'm at now. And I knew the third thing was that I had to start a support group or be a part of a support group. Right. And we meet here as men every single Wednesday night. And we talk through what's going on. Now, we're not doing that right now. We're doing it virtually. But we meet virtually. We talk about what's going on in our struggle. My struggle, if you don't know this, has been pornography for basically my entire existence. And God told me that if I did those 3 things, and it's different for everyone, but those 3 things for me is what would bring me healing. Each one of those required that I let down my pride, that I take off my mask, that I confess my sins to other brothers, and I pray for them, and they pray for me that I might be healed. I told you that America has turned the church into a shrine of perfection, but I am confident in this. That can change. in a little tiny church in Reynoldsburg, Ohio. That will change the entire world. How? Because we become seekers and not hiders. As we prepare to reflect on this is going to be way different today. And it's way different on a purpose. I want them to bring the lights down. No one moving around. Because you got a decision to make today. Are you going to keep hiding? Or are you going to become a seeker? Listen, the only way you become a seeker is to get caught. God just gave that one to me. I didn't even have that one. The only way we become a seeker is to first get caught. We have to be found in order to start seeking. And God has been seeking you long before you were ever even created. But He won't force Himself on you. He will give you opportunity. He'll give you all the opportunities in the world, but He will not force you to do it. So, before church today, I began to pray about, even into last night, like, God, how do we end this service today? How do we do this? God, how do we make this happen? And I was like, well, we could get in groups of 5 people and everybody could share everything that's wrong with them. And I was like, no, that won't work. Well, everybody will think we're crazy. So all I am going to tell you is this. This right now is the time to decide if you're going to be a seeker or a hider. And when I say that, I'm going to give you all about 2 minutes to decide if you want to stay in the room or you want to walk out the door. Listen, it's up to you. I won't judge you. I won't do anything. But if you decide this morning, I'm not ready to be a seeker, I'm still okay being a hider, then I want to give you some time and an opportunity to go ahead and get yourself on out the door, because there's about to be some serious work that happens in this room. So I'm not looking at you. I'm not judging you. They're going to start playing some music, and we're going to start to make this thing work. I got with some people before church started today, and I told them, I didn't tell them what I meant. I didn't tell them what I was going to do. I just said, I need your help today if you are available. And a couple of them looked at me like, what do you have in mind for me? And I was like, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not even sure if I'll need you. But if I call for you, I'm going to ask for you to participate in the end of the service. So, the people that I talked to before church about this particular time, I'm going to ask you to find somewhere in this building to go stand and be available to anyone who might need to come and talk to you in just a moment. So if I spoke to you, if I talked to you, then I will tell you I prayerfully considered this, and this is who God put on my heart. Don't feel jaded by this. It might be your turn in the near future. But where it is, the people that God is directing me to this morning are the people that I'm going to ask to go find somewhere to stand in this room. And what I'm going to ask you to do now is to decide if you want to be a seeker or a hider. A hider will sit and stay right where they are. But a seeker will say, you know what? I am willing to go and talk to someone. I'm willing to confess my sin to them, that they might pray for me, and that I might be healed. See, that verse goes on to say that the prayer of a righteous person has great power as it's moving. And I believe that every single person that I have chosen today to speak to you will be non-judgmental in whatever you tell them. Why? Because they've already been there. They've already been there. They have a story, some of them, that would make your toenails curl compared to what you have gone through. And why are they in this position to talk to you today? Because they became seekers and not hiders. So I want to give you that opportunity today. I will ask this. If you're a man, find a man. If you're a woman, find a woman. And I want you to go to them and I want you to talk to them. We won't have time right in this little bit of time that we have together right now. But I don't care. I'm pretty sure they don't care. Stay as long as you need to. Stand in line if you have to. Get in a group of 4 or 5 of you, and at one time, all of you confess to each other what's going on in your life, because I want a church that's on fire for God, not one that just shows up on Sunday morning so we can feel good about ourselves. I want a church full of seekers. I know. And some of you are terrified right now. Terrified. And I get it. I've been there. I know what this feels like. I know what it feels like to be in your shoes. But you've been praying for this moment. You just didn't think it would happen like this. And now God is answering exactly what you asked for. And now you're ticked off because you're about to get exactly what you asked for. But it didn't come the way you wanted it to come. You've been praying for God to work in that one area of your life. And here this morning, God's going to work on that one area of your life. And you're going to have to decide, do I want to call it out? Do I want to share with someone else where my secret hiding place is? Or do I want to keep running back there and hiding so no one can see me? I'm going to pray with you this morning. And then I'm going to ask you to move. I'm going to ask you to do whatever you need to do this morning to get to wherever you need to get. And if God lays somebody else on your mind to go talk to, then you do that. That's fine. But I want to pray with you this morning because I believe we're about to find some seekers in this room. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the opportunity to do exactly what Jeremiah told us in 29:13, that we will find you if we will seek you with our whole heart. And God, I'm believing there's some people in this room this morning that are going to find you because they're going to seek you with their whole heart. They're going to seek you inside that hidden place, that place that they've been keeping secret from everyone else. And maybe no one even knows it. Or maybe everyone knows it, but they won't admit to it. So God, I'm praying this morning that you will allow us to have clarity and understanding. That you'll give us the opportunity this morning to rise up in boldness and strength. That you'll give us the opportunity this morning to stop being hiders and start seeking your face. Because your word promised us, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, I will forgive their sins. I will hear from heaven, forgive their sins, and heal their land. So God, give us that opportunity this morning. As music plays, you make the decision that you need to make. Angela, I didn't tell you you were on this team, so I'm going to ask you to go find somewhere as well. I'll be available. Whoever you need to speak to, I want you to go to them now. And this is your opportunity to get exactly what you've been asking for. As music plays this morning,